deck here. So it's a 4-color Beanstalk deck. You can see that the only card that we're really splashing for is going to be this Orcish Bowmasters here. I guess you could consider Surgical Black Splash, but most people, are just going to pay the 2 life instead. So you've got your Leyline Binding, Murktide, Triumph of St. Catherine, and Force Will, and sometimes even Lorien revealed to trigger up the Beanstalk. And in a meta with Orcish Bowmasters, you definitely want to have a way of dealing with Orcish Bowmasters, especially in something like this that intends to draw a lot of cards. So these Orcish Bowmasters are here to deal with other opposing Bowmasters. Um, you've got Endurance as well. I like those in the main. I actually pulled this list from Echo Baronin, so I would like to give him credit for that. I think I may have changed a couple of cards in the sideboard, but I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to go back and check it out. But he's got some endurances in the main, which I think is going to be really important in the Rescaminator matchup, which is just all over the place. I mean, if you've been following Legacy for the last couple of months, you don't need me to tell you how popular Rescaminator is. I mean, it's just been all over the place, but I won't get into that. So it's also got some Uro here. I really like that threat, especially when Rescaminator is popular, just because it's a threat that they can't really take away from you, and it even kind of expedites the process of landing an Uro on the table. So we've got 3 tropical islands and then 1 of each dual land in our Sands red mana base here. Let's see, Doorkeeper Patrol. I think this is mainly in the sideboard for Doomsday. I could see that as being important in the Goblins matchup, but ever since they banned the name sticker Goblin, we don't really see that too much. But it is pretty good against Doomsday, and I bring it in pretty frequently for that. 3 blue blasts here. Blood Moon is a problem for this deck, so you do have a basic island and a basic plains. Um, Basic island you can use to cast your blue blast here. Plains, eventually you can get to a Leyline Binding to deal with stuff like Magus of the Moon or Blood Moon. But it's also really good against things like Fable of the Mirror Breaker that are just strong value cards. Another dress down here, again, that's kind of something that you'd want to bring in against um, Thassa's Oracle. Sometimes you can really get them with that. But I find that these are kind of better suited for cleaning up Urza's Saga tokens. Force of Negation for your combo stuff, also really good against things like Life from the Loam out of the land stack. Surgical Extraction, Endurance, again, kind of some more targeted graveyard hate. Um, I found that the surgical extractions have been really helpful in the Rescaminator matchup. We've got 3 Carpet of Flowers for our blue mirrors. This is, nice to have against stuff like Delver. You put down a Carpet of Flowers, and unless they have something like their Molten Collapse, then you're just going to gain a ton of advantage off of these. So I really like having these Carpet of Flowers. 1 Pithing Needle. I can't remember if I say he, I can't remember if Echo Baronin had this in his list or not, but I kind of put here for things like, Urza Saga or any, I guess combo pieces with activated abilities. I think there's an artifact combo deck going around right now, Mystic Forge deck. I think I even played in this league, so we'll take a look at later. But speaking of which, this Null Rod is just an absolute hammer against artifact decks with activated abilities, especially this Mystic Forge combo deck. I mean, I think we even see it later on in the league that once you land this Null Rod, um, there's really not that much they can do about it. I won't spoil the league, but I figured I'd just go in here and show everybody the deck. Quick comments about it. Let's get into the league gameplay. Let's get into round 1, game 1. So this is my first time using this replay here, so just kind of bear with me. So opening hand, I've got Brainstorm, Swords of Plowshares, and 2 Bowmasters. Yeah, not much to say. We've got plenty of mana sources, a Brainstorm to kind of put away some of these cards in case we don't want them, and we'll see how things pan out. So usually I like to lead with a fetch land, just so my opponent can't wasteland me, especially in this deck. Yeah, so here's this artifact combo deck I mentioned in the gameplay. I'm pretty sure, or excuse me, in the deck tech. I'm pretty sure this is the Mystic Forge combo deck. So my opponent develops a Grim Monolith. I've got myself a Force of Will here, and I think I'm just going to pass. Here's a Manifold Key that can make a bunch of mana with Grim Monolith. And here's our Paradox engine. So here, I'm pretty sure I decide to Force of Will this. Um, I've noticed with this deck that they develop a lot of mana, but once you have the opportunity to either remove or force their payoffs, they just don't do a whole lot. And you can see with these two Ancient Tombs, they're doing quite a bit of damage to themselves. Here's a Karn, kind of another payoff. Let's see what they get. Mycosynth Lattice. I'm not too afraid of that simply because this thing's at 3 and I've got a Bowmasters that I can flash in. The Tundra to kind of fill out my suite. Um, Getting the Karn, and my plan here is to get rid of this Karn, and I'm probably just going to play another Bowmasters. Yeah, take care of the Karn. Um, Here, I don't even think they can play the Mycosynth Lattice. I believe that costs 6, and even if they do, I've already got quite a bit here on the table that I can use to, whittle away at their life total. So I draw a dress down. I'm happy to see this because Urza's Saga is probably the only card that I'm really worried about right now. And here they've got another card, but I think it's a bit too late. I mean, they just dealt so much damage to themselves with these Ancient Tombs. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. Ancient Tomb is such a powerful card, but as you could see here, towards the end, they're at 4 life and their only 2 lands are Ancient Tomb. They can't even untap their Grim Monolith with their Manifold Key. And I believe that's the end of this one. Let's get to game number 2. Let's take a look at the sideboard here and figure out what I brought in. I mean, assuredly, the Null Rod came in. Okay, so it looks like I took out my Endurances. I don't think that they utilize their graveyard too much. I took out a Triumph of St. Catherine, and this is a card that I find myself taking out pretty regularly. Yeah, it's cool that you can Miracle it and then draw a card off a Beanstalk and then, have a 5/5 with lifelink, but it's kind of difficult to set up. I mean, you really only have Brainstorm, and that's about it. So this is something I'm happy to trim. Again, I don't think they use their graveyard too much, so I've got Endurance here, and a lot of times I find myself trimming maybe just one of up the Beanstalk. Um, Here, I kind of just want to, find threats like Uro and Riptide Regent and Bowmasters to close the game out, and I've still got 3 Beanstalks in the deck, so I'm kind of looking at my sideboard here, and it looks like I brought in the Dress Down, which makes sense because this is an Urza Saga deck. Force of Negation, the Null Rod, and the Pithing Needle. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, that sounds right. So let's go ahead and get into it. And here I just, open up with the Force. I'm happy to do that. I got a Leyline Binding to deal with their, payoff cards like Mystic Forge or Paradox Engine or Karn, and I'm just happy to hold up the Force. One thing to keep in mind though is they could have a Vexing Bauble, so maybe this hand is pretty weak to that. But again, they do their payoff card, I Force of Will it, and then they don't have a whole lot else going on besides this Urza Saga. But again, this is a scary card. You need to prepared for this, which is why we've got our dress downs. I think here I just fetch just in case there's a Pithing Needle. I mean, really, there's so many better things that they can be grabbing. Yeah, there's the Vexing Boggle. So I'm glad that they didn't have that when I had the Force for the Mystic Forge. And here my thought process is I'm just going to get down this Orcish Bowmaster and deal as much damage as I can. They go for a Kozilek's command on 4, so they're going to make a bunch of Eldrazi spawn, but it doesn't seem like the Bowmaster's going to care too much about that. So we can see that I brainstormed and I was able to find this Null Rod here, and this card is just a hammer in this matchup. I mean, you'll see once I get this thing down, there's really not much that this deck can do, especially now that they've worked their way through an Urza Saga, and it doesn't seem like they really even managed to um, make any constructs with it. So I'm feeling like I'm in a pretty good position right now. There's another Urza Saga and a Mystic Forge, but at this point, I've got the Null Rod, so I'm not too concerned. Here I choose to shuffle and play a Leyline Binding on their Mystic Forge just to prevent them from digging deeper in their library. I'm going to continue to attack them down. develop my up the Beanstalk here. They're going to make a construct token with Urza Saga, but I mean, I've just got two Swords of Plowshare, so although it increases the clock, I'm more than happy just to swords their guy. And here they play a Lotus Petal into their own Vexing Bauble. And I'm pretty sure I set up a Triumph of St. Catherine here. Yeah, so it looks like I left the Triumph of St. Catherine on bottom, and I'm just happy to Swords of Plowshare every single construct token I see, especially now that I see that I've got a Triumph of St. Catherine. And with two Up the Beanstalks on the field here, I'm going to get to play a 2-mana 5/5 with Lifelink and draw two cards. Here's a Murktide. Pretty sure that I'm going to develop this Murktide. And now draw two more cards. This is the power of Up the Beanstalk. I mean, you just have these um, kind of cheap threats. I say cheap. This is 5 mana. This is 7 mana. Obviously, you know, it's not necessarily cheap, but we can cheat on the cost. We've got the Miracle and the Delve here. So when you're playing, you know, 2 mana 5/5s, 2 mana 8/8s, and drawing two cards off of every one of them, this deck can feel pretty powerful. So at this point, you know, my opponent's got another Ancient Tomb up that they're going to be dealing themselves damage with. You know, they've got a Vexing Bauble that's going to be countering some of their spells, and it looks like they're just going to pack it up here. Writing was on the wall, and that looks like round number one. We got the playing two of. All right, here we are for round number two. Playing against Squidward. I think Squidward is kind of an innovator in the uh, maybe fiend space. I could be wrong about that, but I was watching a Be Excellent video. That guy's uh, you know, primarily focused on playing Beanstalk, but most recently he posted a trophy video with a list from Squidward, which is kind of like a take on Bug Beanstalk, but with Tamiyos, stuff like that instead. So here, this is a pretty defensible keep. I mean, we've got, you know, Endurance Green card, Brainstorm, Orcish Bowmasters, and two lands. Not much to say. So my opponent's going to lead on Underground Sea Tamiyo, playing the deck that I think that I mentioned just a second ago. So here I'm going to pass. You don't want to brainstorm on turn one, unless you're like doing an emergency brainstorm. Otherwise, you want to hold your brainstorm so that you can fetch afterwards should you decide that you want to, you know, play something else. So here, I think my opponent's goal is going to be to flip this Tamiyo with a brainstorm. So here, I'm just happy to pass with holding up the Bowmasters. Yeah, and I think that I decide not to play the Bowmasters out, just in case, you know, give it days or something like that. And I've got land drops that I can continue to make, so I don't feel a sense of urgency. And I don't want to play the Up the Beanstalk here because I don't have Force of Will to trigger it or to kind of protect myself from anything that goes on with this Tamiyo. And I can't play Beanstalk and Bowmaster, so again, I'm just going to play a land and pass a turn. So we'll see what they do. Here they go to draw a card with the clue token, so I'm going to get my Bowmasters in, and I choose not to ping the Tamiyo. I would have to rely on them, um, you know, drawing two more cards over the course of my end step in order to kill the Tamiyo. Um, that would require brainstorming. I could just kill it anyway. So here I'm going to brainstorm looking for a Force of Will. Don't find it, unfortunately. So they Witherbloom command away my Orcish Masters, but I think I'm okay with that. You know, I've found a removal spell here that I can use on Tamiyo if I choose, and we'll see what I do with that. Maybe it would have been correct to Swords the Tamiyo, but I think that I may have been trying to hold up a Leyline Binding. Witherbloom command, I think I could just let that go. They're gonna wasteland me again. Okay, maybe not. So here, I think this would be a good spot to play an Up the Beanstalk, although it's possible that I may pass and just try to block this Tamiyo. But no, I think I'm going to go for the Beanstalk here. Orcish Bowmasters, I think that's okay. I can just swords that. So I'm glad that I kept that swords. Days, I could pay for that, and then I've still got force blue card, and I'm going to draw. So here I'm going to go ahead and force because they've put a bunch of resources into trying to deal with this beanstalk that I've dealt with. So, and at this point, this wasteland's not that good. They can't waste me off any one color with this combination of lands that I have. So they've got their Tamiyo, but I do have a leyline binding that I'm going to draw off of that I can just use to get rid of that Tamiyo right away. So now I feel like I'm in a pretty good position. I think it probably would have been right just a Bowmaster right away. Oh, you know what? I've got this double green sitting here. I might want to play this Endurance. And I think my thought process is and guides to get rid of their graveyard before they have a Murktide Regent. Yeah, Psychic Frog is kind of scary. But here we can Miracle a Triumph of St. Catherine, and I'm hoping maybe we could draw um, some removal. Doesn't look like it, though. Here, I can Bowmaster to pump my Orc Army, so I can ping the Frog and force them to put a bunch, either just let the frog go or put a bunch of resources into it. Here they've dumped most of their hand. Looks like they dumped a wasteland, fatal push, land, force of will. So they put a lot of resources into this thing. And they brazen borrower, or I guess petty theft away my um, Triumph of St. Catherine, but I can always replay that. And here I've got the leyline binding that I can use in their psychic frog, and I'm going to use it right away. I just want that thing gone, especially when they're only at one card in hand. I'd hate to wait until their next turn and, have them either draw a blue card for the force that they potentially have or, a force for the blue card that they may be holding. Got our two up the beanstalks now, and our opponent's going to pack it up. Again, this is kind of the power of the beanstalk deck. Once you get a couple up the beanstalks down, all of your expensive cards that you're, cheating on mana cost just, you know, turn into a divination, or they get to staple a divination effect onto it when you have this many beanstalks, and sometimes you can get three of them, and then you've got a recall staple to it every single time. All right, let us get to game number 2. So here I've got some beanstalks, leyline binding, force of will, Murktide Regent. So I'm pretty happy with this. I can lead with the basic planes. That way they can't wasteland me off of beanstalk. They'd have to daze me or force of will me, and then I've got the force backup. Lorien Revealed is even better. I can either force of will something, or what I'll more likely do is go get like a basic island or something here. And I'm happy to force of will this. I'm going to get rid of the Murktide Regent. I'm a little further away from casting that, so I'll develop the Beanstalk. Just kind of a quick side note, I don't know why players choose to say develop. I hear that a lot when I'm watching some of these replays, especially from higher level players. So I don't know if I'm necessarily using the word correctly, but it's what everybody else does, so I'm going to do it too. Here I'm happy to force because I'm going to get to draw a card and protect my Beanstalk. If they wasteland me, that's fine. I'll just play another up the Beanstalk off this tropical island. Burrow's fine. I've got Leyline Binding and Swords to Plowshares. Really hoping to draw a force, and we do see one here. So this is what I was kind of alluding to earlier when you get to tack an Ancestral Recall onto all of your free spells. Here I would be tempted just to Force of Will so that I can draw 3 cards, and it looks like that's what I'm going to do. You could make an argument that I should have waited and just Swords to Plowshare, but I think I was eager to draw 3 cards and get some land because I was a little choked on land there. Here I get to Bowmasters their Brainstorm. They go for a Dismember. It is what it is. Leaving up a basic planes so that I can swords, maybe a Tamiyo or a Bowmasters or Psychic Frog or something like that. Here I'm probably going to swords this Bowmasters. Find a carpet of flowers. Oh, before the end of this, I'll have to go back through and review my sideboard. Sorry about that. I think my opponent had just had enough at this point. I would say that they probably conceded a little prematurely. So let's take a look at the sideboard real quick before I forget to do that. All right. So it looks like I took out one Endurance, a Dress Down, and a Triumph of St. Catherine. No, I didn't. No, I did take out an Endurance because this normally plays one in the board. So yep, I took out a Triumph of St. Catherine, Dress Down, and an Endurance. And so that's gonna be one, two, yeah, one, two, three cards. So I think I just brought in the Carpet of Flowers. That looks to be about it. Let me just double check my sideboard here. Yeah, no Doorkeeper Thralls. Doorkeeper Thralls just not that good against Orcish Bowmaster, especially when you have a Brainstorm Ponder, a Beanstalk deck. They're going to get value out of it either way, so I don't recommend bringing in Doorkeeper Thrall. Um, this is not a matchup that I want to bring in Force of Negations. The reason that I leave Force of Will in is because this isn't up the Beanstalk deck. I mean, you saw me force that Uro and draw three cards, so it's one of the big advantages of this deck is you don't have to, and you, frankly, you don't want to board out your Force of Wills in the fair blue matches. Yeah, you can see here we've got one, two, three, four islands on the opposing side. So, I mean, I've got three beanstalks and a carpet of flowers. So I'm getting, three extra cards every time I cast one of these, 5+ mana spells. And I'm getting four extra mana every turn. This deck doesn't play Wasteland. Um, I think the mana base just doesn't support it. Um, so it's not like, I'm reducing the number of islands that my opponent is going to have in play. So again, I think they conceded a little prematurely, but with, Carpet of Flowers and three up the Beanstalks and an additional card in hand to them, I think they probably had just had enough. So, all right. Looks like we've got two match wins so far in our league. So let's see if the next one. All right, so here we are for round number 3. Looks like we lost the die roll. I think this hand is pretty defensible. I mean, you've got, a blue source, a bunch of ponders, and a brainstorm. We're a little weak to Wasteland, but I still wouldn't choose to throw this back. Opponent leads with a polluted delta, could be any blue deck. More likely than not, Rescaminator. So I'm going to find a Force of Will just to kind of protect myself. And again, I think they're going to Wasteland me out of the game. No, they didn't because I left a Plains on top. Still got my Force up, and now I'm kind of daze proof. And here we've got Wasteland, polluted delta, swamp. So I'm thinking Rescaminator. There's a Psychic Frog. More than happy to force that away. We've got our Lorien revealed. Think that I'd choose to go get the basic island to kind of protect myself from Wasteland. Draw the Lorien revealed here. I think I want to just continue hitting my land drops so that I can make these leyline bindings relevant. And I've also got a Murktide Regent here that I think I'd like to get. Just play the Bayou out here. I think my rationale was I can play a leyline binding. There's the Troll. We'll see if they try to reanimate it. Yep, cycle Lorien revealed, leave up two basics just in case I want a leyline binding. And here I think I'm probably ready to play this Murktide. Okay, I think that probably would have been a good spot to play the Murktide, but maybe my thought process was, I can hold up two leyline bindings. I try to dress down to stop the Atraxa, and then I'm going to leyline binding in response to the trigger. If you don't want to get Force of Willed, you want to leyline binding or whatever removal spell that you're using before they resolve their trigger. So they've got an Archon, so this game is pretty much over at this point. I can leyline binding it. They've got another Force of Will, and now I can't, get rid of it with my swords because of the way that I've chosen to fetch. So it's possible that, playing Scared of Wasteland has, allowed this Archon to attack. So here, if they have a Grief, I think I'll probably just pack it in, which is, I think, exactly what happens. Yeah. At that point, the game is over. So I think what I should have done, because I only saw one wasteland that entire game, was just get a tundra instead of this island. Um, and that way I could have swords and protected the Murktide Regent that was in my hand that I discarded to the Archon attack, because then, that's an additional 3 life that I lost. That's an additional card that they had. So I think that I probably should have gotten the Tundra instead of this island, but it's the way that it is sometimes. Get on to game 2. And this time I'll remember to pause at the beginning so we can kind of take a look at how I sideboarded. Okay, so I don't know if this is correct. Um, so I've got all of my endurances, all of my carpet of flowers, and all of my surgical extractions. So it looks like I took out Triumph, Murktide Regent, Uru, and 3 Bowmasters. So that's a total of what, 6 cards? So that would be Endurance, Carpet of Flowers, and Surgical Extraction. And I brought in all of which are really good cards against the Scaminator deck, but I think cutting Orcish Bowmasters is defensible, especially now that many of these scam decks are not playing Orcish Bowmasters in the main. They've just got Psychic Frog, which is so much better in their deck. It's an evasive attacker, it draws them cards, and it also enables their reanimation stuff. So I think that, cutting Bowmasters for that is definitely the way that you want to go if you're a Rescaminator player. I don't know that I should have cut this Uro, and in fact, now that I'm looking at it, I probably should have ditched the second Triumph of St. Catherine, kept the Uro. They can't really reanimate your Uro. Like, yeah, they'll get to draw a card and gain some life and maybe put a land in play, but it's going to go back to your graveyard anyway, versus if they grief away your Triumph of St. Catherine, they can reanimate it. So, yeah, I'm thinking that maybe leaving the Uro in and cutting the other Triumph of St. Catherine would have been preferable. But let's get to it. In fact, I think this is going to be a pretty quick game. I mean, I was on Discord with my brother at the time, and we were kind of just looking at this hand, and immediately said, "There's no way that you can keep that. You've got 3 carpets that you can't play. You've got just your 2 basics." And in my mind, thinking I've got Brainstorm off a basic island and a Swords to Plowshares off of plains. If they grief me, I can hide some of these good cards and then maybe get to a Lorien Revealed or, a fetch land that gets me a green source, which is all of my fetch lands. And then they can just take some of these redundant Carpet of Flowers. But I think that's kind of to my folly. Yeah, so here I'm going to brainstorm in response to the grief, put away some of these cards that I want. So I get rid of the Dress Down and the um, Swords to Plowshares. Not get rid of, but protect it. So they can take my Up the Beanstalk. Here I can Swords their grief if I really want to, but I think that I decide that I'm not scared of their grief, and I'll just wait until end step to Swords it. They don't have a land drop, so this keep seems a little precarious. Here I'm thinking it's a Psychic Frog. No, it's a Dothy Voidwalker. So I think I end step Dress Down here just to try to draw some cards. So Lorien Revealed, I get a Tropical Island to play one of these Carpet of Flowers. They Force of Negation, that's fine. I mean, I've got 2 more of them. Although I'm wishing that these were, something else at this point. So they Brainstorm, Wasteland my Tropical Island. Now I can't play my Carpet of Flowers. Things are not looking good for me. I think I go get another Tropical Island and play another Carpet of Flowers. But at this point, I mean, I have no interaction. I have no threats. I have no card selection or advantage, and I just choose to play out another carpet. So if I draw, something like a Triumph of St. Catherine, I can't even play it because I don't get the carpet mana for until my main phase. I'm going to lose the Uro to the Dothy Voidwalker, but I think I play it out anyway, just, digging for anything that I can find. I think I probably should have gone Leyline Binding in their turn just so they can't draw days. And I think they accidentally skipped through their turn because there's seems like there's no reason to not attack. Put back the Force and the Misty, I guess. I probably should have. Well, no, I guess I need this Leyline Binding. I'm gonna make some mana with the Carpet of Flowers, Brainstorm again, and then I think my plan is to Leyline Binding. But they've got the Force of Will. Here I'm gonna make some green mana and play out an Endurance. The Endurance cannot block the Dothy Voidwalker because it has Shadow. They're gonna Wasteland me, probably off my okay, off my white source. Although I still have the basic planes, and here I'm down to one. I can't even fetch, can't Force of Will. So I think here I'm gonna pack it in. So it's hard to say for sure if I would have won this game if I had mulliganed, but I hate mulliganing in general, especially versus a grief deck. You mulligan to six, they grief you away. They grief away two of your cards. You're down to four cards as you start your turn. If you're on the draw, you get to go up to five cards, but then they have a grief in play, and this Rescaminator deck top decks pretty well because of the cantrips and the reanimation stuff. They really only need one good threat to win the game, or in this case, the Dothy Voidwalkers. So yeah, definitely should have. Maybe not definitely should have. I think that's a defensible hand, but you could see how the outcome would have been different had I chosen to mulligan that. All right, well, um, couldn't quite get there for match number 3, but we'll see how we do in match number 4. All right, we're back for round number 4. Playing against Pizza Pie Bob, which is probably one of the best MTGO names that I've seen. We do win the die roll, and this looks like a keepable hand. I mean, if I'm playing against a combo deck, I'm going to be a little sad, but these swords will be great against some kind of creature strategy. And then I can just get some more land with the Lorin revealed, but I think I'll keep my Flooded Strand there, just in case I draw a Brainstorm. So we've got an Undercity Sewers. Not sure if we're playing against another Rescam deck. Hopefully we'll fare better than we did in the last round. Here I'm happy to just continue to play my lands and pass. The more lands I play, the more interaction that I'm able to hold up. So yep, there's an Entomb. Looks like we are playing against a Rescaminator. We'll see if they've got the reanimation spell here. I imagine they do. Yep, so there's the Animate Dead. Here, I believe I'm going to try to Leyline Binding in response to the Animate Dead. They force it. Get a basic Plains and try to Swords this. So they've got another Force of Will. They're all the way down to one card, but they're going to draw, a bunch off of Atraxa. Here I want to Leyline Binding the Atraxa, not the Animate Dead. If you Leyline Binding the Animate Dead, the Atraxa is going to go back to the graveyard. I think they get an Archon here. Yeah, they do. And they've pretty much just got everything. They discard me, all the way down. I managed to get their Archon, but we're still kind of dying to this Atraxa. They've got more cards in hand, and I've got this, Lorien revealed. It's not doing me much good. I think my thought process is I'm going to Lorien revealed next turn and try to get like a white source and a Swords to Plowshares or something like that. We'll see, they grief me, and I'm down to 0 cards in hand, and I think the game is pretty much over at that point. So we'll see if we can do better and try to win the next two to salvage the match. All right, let's take a peek at the sideboard. Okay, so it looks like I made the changes. It's kind of funny. So we can see that the Uro is back in and the Triumph of St. Catherine is out. So I think that I thought over my decisions that I kind of discussed in the previous round. Uro is a threat that they can't really grief away. I don't want them reanimating my Triumph of St. Catherine. So here it looks like the 4 Bowmasters and the 2 Triumph are going out, bringing in the 2 Surgicals, 3 Carpets, and the 1 Endurance. So we'll see what I draw here. Yep, got a bunch of Force Spells, Murktide Regent, and cantrips. So here I think I'm happy to draw the Brainstorm. I don't want to put the Carpet into play or into my hand right away in case they grief it. So here I'm going to let them grief me. They cannot take me off of Force of Will, so they reanimate, and I'm going to Force of Will pitching Brainstorm. Get rid of that reanimate. Here I can safely play out the Carpet. So I'm going to get Savannah, so I have a white source and a green source, and get this Carpet down. Okay, Psychic Frog is a little scary, but I do have a Brainstorm. And I've got a Carpet of Flowers as well. So I think what I'm going to do is play out a Carpet of Flowers and then make blue mana on my second main phase and play a Murktide Regent. So Murktide Regent blocks Psychic Frog pretty well. He doesn't have enough cards in hand to, make this Psychic Frog trade with my Murktide. So right now this Murktide is just going to be a great big wall. So choose not to make mana. I think what I'm going to do here is Brainstorm. Okay, Surgical is good. And then I'm not attacking with this Murktide Regent until I can find a way to deal with the Psychic Frog. I'm really happy to see that Entomb, especially after drawing a Surgical Extraction, and I've got enough lands up that I don't have to worry about a daze. The only thing I got to be concerned with is Force of Will. So they need Reanimation Spell, blue card, Force of Will to protect this Archon that they have in their graveyard. I think that I've got a Lorien revealed on top, which is why I chose to make so much blue mana with just the Brainstorm. I'm sure I could go back, but that's what would make sense to me. There's a Reanimate, and I'm happy to cast this Surgical. They have to have exactly blue card Force of Will. And they exile their frog. It kind of protects them, protects their hand. So yeah, there's that Lorien revealed, and then I'm going to draw 3 cards, and then get this up the Beanstalk down. They daze it, whatever. I've got another one. Play the Undercity Sewers again, and let's see. Looks like they did not put anything into their graveyard. So I'm going to play up the Beanstalk again. Happy to see an Endurance. Now I've got instant speed Endurance that I can use here. Really happy to have that Endurance now, especially with that, because I'm going to be able to get rid of this Grief and this Atraxa, and it looks like they are going to pack it in. So again, they're at 18 life. They've still got cards in hand. They've still got a Psychic Frog. Um, Endurance doesn't really block Psychic Frog forever, but this deck doesn't have too much card advantage aside from, like Atraxa and Archon. So I think next turn, if this Endurance survives, which I imagine it would because they conceded here when I cast it, um, it's probably about time to start swinging in with Murktide. All right, so let's see if we can get a win here to salvage round 4. Just make sure that there have been no changes to the sideboard. Nope, makes sense. I mean, those Surgical, Carpet of Flowers, and Endurance are just much better against this Rescaminator deck than Bowmasters. I don't think that there's a difference in what you want to play on the draw versus on the play, especially with the free interaction like Endurance and Surgical Extraction. I should probably start this. Yep, we've got some free interaction, Removal Spell, Brainstorm, so this hand looks good. And I think I'm going to lead with the Misty, just so I don't get wastelanded. Undercity Sewers. Didn't look like they put anything in the graveyard. Okay, there's a Dothy Voidwalker. Normally kind of a scary card, but we've got a Leyline Binding. Here, I think I'll probably get a Tundra or Savannah and then Swords that. I don't have to worry about that anymore. So opponent's looking a little low on resources. Psychic Frog, okay. Kind of a scary card, but again, I've got this Leyline Binding here. Gotta go get a black land so I can play Leyline Binding for 2, so I have one to play around Days, and I am able to get the Psychic Frog. Looks like they don't have any plays. So here, we've got this Endurance that I was able to find off the Brainstorm. I've got, Force of Will, Surgical Extraction, Endurance. So here, I'm going to Force of Will it just because I do have the Endurance. So they Entomb to kind of bait out my, let me pause this for a second. So it looks like they're going to Entomb and then get their Atraxa, and I'm able to Surgical Extract that away, and they're down to 1 card in hand. And I think I'm going to play this Endurance out anyway because there is still a Grief in the graveyard. We'll get this Murktide down. And then they just concede to the Murktide. But again, I've noticed a lot of opponents just conceding prematurely. 22 life, it's going to take me, a minimum of 3 turns. Yeah, this turn, and then, so that'll put 19, and then 10, 10. So, I mean, they would have to draw absolutely nothing for 3 turns. I mean, they don't have a graveyard, but, this last card could be a Brainstorm, and they could, Brainstorm into Entomb Reanimate or something like that. And then all I've got is this Leyline Binding. The Atraxa is gone, but they've still got Archon. That does something on ETB that would make me, sack my Endurance and discard the Leyline Binding. Although I can play it, but I think the opponent conceded a little prematurely. But all right, looks like we were able to get match number 4. So let's move on to the final match. All right, we're back for round number 5. So we missed our opportunity to get the trophy, but hopefully we can get the 4-1 here. I mean, that's the next best thing. So pretty defensible keep. Got some interaction, some way to find some more lands, and, Murktide region. So opponent off to the races with, looks like some kind of Echo of Eons combo deck here. I mean, usually when I see Lion's Eye Diamond, I think either Dredge or Echo of Eons. Gamble was kind of a strange one. I'm not super familiar with this Echo of Eons deck, but as soon as I see Gamble, I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, Echo of Eons seems like the thing to get if you got a Lion's Eye Diamond in hand. So here I'm just going to cycle. There's really not much of a reason for that, I guess. So we'll see. Yeah, it looks like they echo into just a Chromox hand. So, that's one of the disadvantages of, wheeling. There's a difference between a draw 7 and a mulligan, I guess. Like, yeah, you go up to 7 versus 6, but, you have a little bit more agency over what you're going to draw. So it looks like they just wheeled into a hand that wasn't very passable. So here I see an Orcish Bowmasters, which I'm more than happy to use against a deck that's going to try to wheel me. And I think I'm going to get a black source and then just go ahead and play it out instead so they can start to chip away at their life total. And I think Leyline Binding the Chrome Mox is exactly what I want to do because now they're off of mana sources. Now they've got a discard. They discard a Paradoxical Outcome. And it looks like Up the Beanstalk is probably the play right now. Holding up a blue source for a Brainstorm if I need that. And then I've got an Endurance and a Force of Will with a Beanstalk in play, just in case they're able to get an Echo. So yeah, unfortunately there it looks like my opponent just kind of lost to their own Echo of Eons. All they ended up with was a Chrome Mox, which I was able to get rid of with Leyline Binding. Even if they remove it, it comes back and it doesn't have anything. Okay, well, let's take a look at the next game and see how we fare. All right, sideboard time. So it looks like the dress down, the Uros, and a Swords to Plowshares came out. So I believe that means that I brought in a surgical. Well, let's take a look here. So Null Rod, yeah, that makes sense, especially if they're trying to do Chrome Mox, Lotus Petal, Lion's Eye Diamond things. If you can just shut them off of their mana, they're not going to have much to do here. I'm guessing this is a Hull Breacher deck, which is why they have Echo of Eons. So I don't want to get rid of all of my Swords to Plowshares, so I do want to leave some in. Don't need Carpet of Flowers here because they don't really have blue sources or islands. They have blue sources, just no islands. So it looks like I bring in Endurance, Surgical Extraction, take out the Dress Down. Force of Negation is another one, and then Null Rod. So in these types of matchups where my opponent has these kind of glass cannon, artifact mana based strategies, I just cannot wait to draw into a Null Rod. Yeah. They've got Urza Saga right away and a bunch of Lion's Eye Diamonds, and I think I'm probably just gonna struggle to deal with these Urza Saga tokens. Yeah, I mean, just by leaving these Lion's Eye Diamonds and Lotus Petal out, they're gonna allow themselves to build some pretty big constructs. And we'll see what they get. Maybe Vexing Bauble. Yep, there it is. Echo of Eons, not much I can do about that. Defense Grid. Let me just slow down for a second here. Yeah, they've got the defense grid, so I can't force anything right now. Um, I think what I'm going to do is probably just Swords to Plowshares the token. The Bowmaster is going to allow me to get some blockers down. I think I just Swords it right away because they've got the defense grid down. If I waited until their turn to cast it, I just wouldn't even be able to cast it. So I get to Bowmaster them off the Mishra's Bauble trigger. Got Surgical Extraction. I'm going to play up the Beanstalk just to try to, dig for some more things here. And then I kind of foolishly attack into the Construct token. But here I'm going to Leyline Binding it, draw a card off of up the Beanstalk. Still get to deal 3 damage. I'm not even keeping them off of wheels because they're not dead to an Orcish Bowmasters. But I'm just having a difficult time dealing with all these Construct tokens, especially with this Lava Spur Boots. They can just attack me for 8 here, and I'm going to be dead pretty quickly. Okay, so I think what I'm trying to do here is get out this Murktide to draw some additional cards and put a blocker down. It only came down as a 4/4, but I mean, this thing is just going to be on blocking duty. And then, I think this is what I was trying to allude to earlier. So not quite the Shame Concede, but pretty close. Uh, there's no reason for me to attack there, especially knowing that they could, make a construct token. But I think that I was just a little fatigued from all these construct tokens that my opponent was able to make. I mean, they had 3 Urza's Saga in the top 16 cards of their deck, which, is going to happen sometimes. I try not to get upset about variance, but yep, we just lost the game to these construct tokens, so you can't really rely on the Null Rod here to carry us all the way through the game. So we'll get to game number 3 and see if we can get the 4-1. Let me double check the sideboard here just to see if I made any changes. Yeah, so no Uros, no Triumph of St. Catherine. In the main board, that is, they are in the sideboard. So here I just see I've got a dress down for their construct tokens. I've got a bowmaster for their, wheel effects, and I've got a null rod for their mana. So, I'm kind of bouncing up and down in my chair at this point, just thrilled that I have this hand, and I'm just hoping they're not going to be able to, um, wheel me right away, which I think they do end up wheeling me, and there's not much I can do. So, pretty sad at this point because I felt like I just had, the stone cold nuts. But all you can do is play it out. So here I'm gonna, get a Bowmasters down. Bowmaster them in response to the Vexing Bauble, try to chip away at their life total and pump my Orc army. They dismember it, and here I'm going to force it because if they care that much about Bowmasters, which they should, they've got, Echo of Eons in their deck. Wow, that's a lot of artifact mana. So transmute artifact, they're going to get the One Ring. It's really important to note here that they do not get the protection from everything ability because it was not cast. So when they go to activate it, they are going to take Bowmaster damage. So here, very excited to see another force. And my opponent's going to take one. They're going to draw Bowmaster again, go down to two. They can't even use the Ancient Tomb at this point. Transmute artifact, presumably to get another One Ring. I force a will it, and then they concede. They die on the crackback. Can't use their Ancient Tomb, even if I don't attack. Um, they can't activate their One Ring. All right, so it looks like we were able to get the 4-1. All right, thank you so much for joining, and take care.